All right, welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be diving into some pretty choppy waters. The trucking industry.
Okay.
And specifically a company called KAL Freight. They recently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we've got some news articles from Freightways in the Street to help us kind of wade through all this.
Okay.
Plus, we've got some legal documents from the United States Court's website. So we're going to be looking at all of those to get kind of a complete picture of what's going on. It's a pretty complex picture.
I bet.
So our mission today is to try to understand what led to this downfall for KAL Freight, but also what Chapter 11 actually means and what this whole thing signals for the trucking industry in general.
Yeah, it's definitely a situation worth taking a closer look at.
For sure.
Especially considering the state of the trucking market right now.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Who is KAL Freight? They're based in Fontana, California.
Okay.
Been around since 2014. And at the time of filing, they had a pretty impressive fleet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like 800 trucks.
Whoa.
800 drivers and over 2,200 trailers.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
You know, what's interesting is that they weren't just focused on trucking.
Oh.
They had all these other divisions.
Oh, really?
Like for trailers, tire dealing, truck, and trailer parts, even aviation.
Wow.
Although it seems like that last one wasn't really active.
Huh. So a lot of different ventures, all under this KAL Freight umbrella. And, you know, that might give us some clues as to why they ended up in this situation.
It's possible.
So they filed for Chapter 11 on December 5th, 2024.
Okay.
Which, you know, in itself isn't that unusual in the current economic climate.
Right.
But what unusual is that they chose to file in the Southern District of Texas, even though they're based in California.
Strange, yeah. Makes you wonder what the strategy was there.
Right.
Was it some kind of legal move? Or were they looking for a specific court or judge?
Yeah.
I mean, there could be a lot of factors at play.
Absolutely. Adds a whole other layer of intrigue to this whole thing, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So let's get to the heart of the matter.
Yeah, but
Why did KAL Freight file for bankruptcy?
right.
The sources we've looked at, they seem to suggest that it's kind of a mix of internal decisions and external pressures.
Okay.
So, for example, they merged with other trucking companies back in 2020.
Okay.
And that move seems to have really backfired.
Yeah, mergers and acquisitions can be risky.
Right.
In any industry.
For sure.
And it seems like those integrations didn't really go as smoothly as they planned.
Right.
Makes you wonder, like, what due diligence they did beforehand.
Exactly.
Did they overestimate the synergies or maybe underestimate the complexities of merging, like, different company cultures and operations?
Yeah. Those are excellent questions. And on top of that, they invested heavily in trucks and trailers during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Probably assuming that the high demand would continue.
Yeah, which unfortunately it didn't.
It didn't, right?
I mean, the trucking industry went from like a boom to a bust pretty quickly.
Yeah, that brings us to this whole great freight recession that's been plaguing the industry since March 2022. There's just this oversupply of trucks and drivers, which means more competition and shrinking profit margins.
Exactly.
So
when you combine those external pressures with KAL Freight's own internal challenges, it really starts to paint a picture of a company that got caught in like a perfect storm.
Absolutely. And then there's this added complexity of the owner, Calvinder Singh, and his Canadian companies. So 3 entities that he owns, all with names that kind of mirror KAL Freight's divisions. They filed for receivership in Canada earlier this year.
Really?
Yeah, and it really makes you wonder if those struggles up north played a role in KAL Freight's downfall here.
Yeah, were they like stretching their resources too thin?
Right.
Trying to, keep those Canadian companies afloat?
Exactly.
Or was there some kind of interdependence between the U.S. and Canadian operations that just backfired?
Right. And unfortunately, the sources we've looked at don't really give us a definitive answer on that.
Well,
it's something to keep in mind, though, as we continue to unpack this whole situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, before we get too deep into the specifics of KAL Freight's challenges, I think it's worth taking a step back and talking about Chapter 11 bankruptcy itself.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of people, when they hear those words, they immediately think liquidation, game over.
Right, yeah.
But it's not always that simple, is it?
No, not at all.
What is it?
Well, it's important to remember that Chapter 11 is mainly about reorganization.
Yeah.
Not liquidation.
Okay.
It's really a legal framework designed to give companies a chance to, restructure their debts, renegotiate with their creditors.
Okay.
And hopefully come out of it as a stronger entity.
So it's more like they're hitting the pause button on their financial obligations while they figure out a plan to move forward.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's like a timeout, a chance to regroup and reassess their situation without having, the debt collectors breathing down their necks.
Right. Yeah. And during this time out, do they still get to run the business?
Yeah.
Or does someone else come in and take over?
Well, in most Chapter 11 cases, the debtor, which in this case is KAL Freight, they actually stay in control of their operations.
Okay.
They work with the creditors and the court to develop a plan for, restructuring their debts. And eventually becoming financially stable again.
So it's not an immediate shutdown or fire sale of assets.
Well,
they still have a chance to steer the ship.
Yeah, they do.
You speak.
Chapter 11 is really about giving them that breathing room.
Okay.
And the legal protection to, potentially, the ship.
Okay.
Not just abandon it altogether.
So in essence, Chapter 11 is more like a financial restructuring process?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
It's a way for companies that are facing significant financial distress. To explore their options, negotiate with stakeholders.
Okay.
And hopefully find a path back to solvency.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of this path back to solvency, what exactly is KAL Freight's game plan here?
Right.
What are they hoping to achieve during this Chapter 11 period?
Well, their stated goal is to reorganize and restructure their main trucking business.
Okay.
They're also planning to wind down those less profitable divisions.
Oh, okay.
KL parts and KVL tires, essentially, shedding some weight to focus on what they do best.
So back to basics.
Yeah.
Focusing on their core competency.
Exactly.
And hopefully becoming more efficient and profitable in the process.
That seems to be the strategy, yeah.
Okay.
It's not uncommon, in these situations for companies to streamline their operations, divest those non-core assets, and try to, regain their footing in the market.
Okay, but even with a solid plan, they're still operating in a very challenging environment, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, the trucking industry is facing some serious headwinds.
Yeah, the Great Freight Recession has been, it's been a tough period for a lot of companies.
Right.
And to really understand why we need to kind of dig a little deeper into the factors that contributed to this downturn.
Yeah. What are some of the key things that have led to this Great Freight Recession?
Well, for starters, we've got the lingering effects of the pandemic.
Right.
The supply chain disruptions.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember all those port congestion issues?
Oh, yeah. It felt like everything was stuck in limbo for months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all the delays in getting goods moved around.
Right.
That created a lot of uncertainty and volatility in the market.
Yeah.
Which led to some companies overestimating demand.
Okay.
And investing in more trucks and drivers than they ended up needing.
So when things started to normalize, there was just this sudden oversupply of trucking capacity.
Precisely. Yeah. And that oversupply has been driving down freight rates.
Right.
Putting a real squeeze on profit margins for a lot of these companies.
Yeah. It's classic supply and demand, isn't it?
It is.
Too much supply, not enough demand, prices go down. Makes sense.
And then to complicate things even further, we've got rising fuel prices eating into those already thin profit margins.
Oh, I bet. I mean, fuel is a major expense for trucking companies, right?
Oh,
so those fluctuating prices can really make or break them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about the driver shortage.
Oh, right.
That's been going on for years.
Yeah.
It's just become so difficult to find and keep qualified drivers.
Right.
And that just adds to the cost of doing business.
It's like a perfect storm of challenges.
It is.
Overcapacity, low freight rates, high fuel costs, and a shortage of drivers.
It's a tough environment.
No wonder so many trucking companies are struggling.
For sure.
Yeah.
And for companies like KAL Freight that already have, those internal challenges and financial vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
these external pressures can just be overwhelming.
So even though there are some signs that the Great Freight Recession might be easing a little bit, it's still a very precarious situation for a lot of these companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Navigating these choppy waters requires, careful planning, strategic decision-making, and a little bit of luck.
It always helps, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, so we've established that the trucking industry is facing some serious challenges.
Yeah.
And that KAL Freight's Chapter 11 filing is likely a reflection of both internal and external pressures. But what are they actually doing to address this?
Right.
How are they using this Chapter 11 timeout to try and get back on track?
Well, they filed some motions to use their existing cash collateral. Which basically means they're asking the court for permission to tap into funds that are typically subject to a creditor's security interest. They're also looking to continue operating under their factoring agreement.
Hold on. I need a little clarification here.
Okay.
What exactly is a factoring agreement?
Right, yeah.
It sounds like something straight out of a finance textbook.
Well, it's actually pretty common in the trucking industry. It basically means that KAL Freight sells its invoices to this company called Triumph Business Capital. And then Triumph advances them a portion of the invoice amount. So this gives KAL Freight, immediate cash flow to cover their expenses. While Triumph takes on the risk of collecting the full amount from KAL Freight's customers.
So it's a way for them to access cash quickly.
Exactly.
Without having to wait for their customers to pay.
Yeah, it can be a lifeline for companies that are, facing those cash flow challenges.
That makes sense.
Especially in an industry like trucking.
Right.
Where those payment terms can be pretty lengthy.
So they're trying to keep the wheels turning while they work on their reorganization plan.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Trying to maintain, business as usual as much as possible.
Right.
While also, restructuring and negotiating with creditors.
Seems like a delicate balancing act.
It is. It is. They got to keep the customers happy. Employees paid, creditors at bay.
Yeah.
All while trying to turn around a struggling business.
And all of this against the backdrop of this volatile trucking market.
It's a challenging situation.
It is.
A lot of moving parts.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground here in part 1 of our deep dive.
We have.
Into KAL Freight's Chapter 11 filing. We've explored the company's history, the factors that led to their current situation, and the broader challenges facing the trucking industry. But what about the human side of this story?
Oh, yeah.
What does Chapter 11 mean for KAL Freight's employees, their customers, and the communities where they operate?
That's a crucial aspect.
It is.
We can't overlook that.
For sure.
The financial and legal stuff is important, but ultimately it's people's lives and livelihoods that are affected by events.
And in KAL Freight's case, we're talking about, 800 drivers plus all the other employees in their different divisions.
Right.
So what happens to them when a company goes through this?
It's definitely a time of uncertainty for employees.
Well, I bet.
Chapter 11 doesn't automatically mean layoffs. But there's no guarantee of job security either.
So it's a bit of a waiting game for those drivers.
It is.
Wondering if they'll still have a job once everything's settled.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, KAL Freight has said that they want to continue operating, their core trucking business. So there's hope that that a lot of those drivers will get to keep their jobs. But even then, there might be changes,
Like what?
Restructuring. Route adjustments, maybe even pay cuts.
Right. And we know they're planning to wind down those parts and tire divisions. Which means job losses for those employees.
Unfortunately, yes. And it's not just the drivers and the direct employees either.
Right.
Think about the mechanics, the dispatchers. The administrative staff.
Right. A whole ecosystem.
Is
affected when a company this size goes through Chapter 11.
It's a ripple effect.
It is.
That goes way beyond the company itself.
And what about KAL Freight's customers? The companies that rely on them to transport their goods.
Right.
What happens to them during this whole process?
Well, Chapter 11 can definitely disrupt the supply chain. There's a risk of delays, service interruptions.
Right.
Maybe even contracts being renegotiated or canceled.
So if I'm a company that relies on KAL Freight, to move my products, I'd be wise to start looking at other options.
It's always good to have a backup plan.
Okay.
But, KAL Freight is really emphasizing that business as usual thing.
Okay.
While they go through this Chapter 11 process, they've filed those motions to continue operating and using their existing cash.
Yeah.
So they're clearly trying to, minimize the disruption for their customers.
Right. But even with the best intentions, there's always a chance that things could slip through the cracks.
There's always that risk. Yeah.
During this whole process.
Yeah. Communication is key here.
Okay.
Both from KAL Freight, being transparent with their customers.
Right.
About any potential hiccups.
Okay.
And from the customers.
Yeah.
Staying in contact.
Yeah.
And being ready to adjust if they need to.
So it's a two-way street.
Yes.
Requiring flexibility and understanding from both sides.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this is where that insider knowledge of the trucking industry can be really valuable. Right. Customers who understand the nuances of Chapter 11, the legal processes, the potential challenges KAL Freight is facing, they'll be better equipped to navigate this whole situation.
That's a great point. It's not just about panicking and jumping ship at the first sign of trouble.
Exactly.
It's about understanding what's going on, communicating, and working together to find solutions.
Exactly.
Right.
And for some customers, this might even be an opportunity.
An opportunity in the midst of a Chapter 11 filing.
Yeah, I know. It sounds strange.
Yeah.
But think about it.
Okay.
If KAL Freight has to liquidate some assets, there might be deals to be had.
Oh, okay.
On trucks, trailers, equipment.
Right.
And if they have to streamline their routes or downsize their operations, that could create an opening for smaller trucking companies.
Right.
To step in and fill that void.
Interesting. So while there's definitely risk and uncertainty involved, there could also be some unexpected benefits.
There could.
For those who are savvy enough to spot them.
That's often the case.
Yeah.
Disruption creates opportunities.
Right.
And those who are prepared and adaptable, they can often come out ahead.
Now, speaking of savvy and adaptable, let's shift gears a little bit and dive into the legal side of Chapter 11. We've touched on some of the basics, but I think it's worth exploring some of those key legal terms and concepts in a little more detail.
Absolutely.
So when a company files for Chapter 11, one of the first things that kicks in is something called an automatic stay.
Right.
Can you explain what that means?
Sure, yeah.
And why it's important?
So the automatic stay is essentially a legal protection that shields the debtor, which is KAL Freight in this case, from their creditors. It's like a temporary ceasefire in the debt collection battle.
So creditors can't just come in and start seizing assets or demanding immediate payment.
Nope.
Okay.
Once that Chapter 11 petition is filed, all those debt collection actions, like lawsuits, foreclosures, repossessions, they're all put on hold.
Okay.
This gives KAL Freight some breathing room to assess their situation, come up with a plan, and negotiate with those creditors without the constant pressure of immediate debt collection.
So it sounds like a crucial protection.
It is.
For a company in a vulnerable position.
Yeah. It gives them a chance to regroup and strategize without being bombarded by creditors.
But this stay isn't indefinite, is it?
No, you're right.
At some point, those creditors are going to want their money.
Exactly. It's a temporary measure.
Okay.
And there are certain circumstances where a creditor can ask the court to lift it. For example, if KAL Freight doesn't have any equity in a particular asset, and that asset isn't essential to their reorganization plan, a creditor might be able to, foreclose on that property.
Okay, so there are exceptions, but generally speaking, the stay is there to protect the debtor.
Yes.
During this critical period.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about finding that balance, protecting the debtor's interests while also recognizing the rights of the creditors.
Right. And speaking of creditors, they actually have a pretty significant role in this whole Chapter 11 process, don't they?
They do, yeah.
It's not just the debtor calling all the shots.
Right. Creditors have the right to form a committee that represents their interests in the bankruptcy proceedings.
Okay.
So this committee works with the debtor, examines their business operations, and has a say in developing the reorganization plan.
So it's a collaborative process to some extent.
To a degree, yes.
Right.
Creditors need to agree to the plan, and their cooperation is usually essential for a successful reorganization.
Now, our sources mention something called avoidable transfers.
Right.
That sounds a bit shady to me.
It's not necessarily shady.
Okay.
But it's definitely something that bankruptcy courts look at closely.
Okay. What does that mean exactly?
So avoidable transfers refer to any transactions the debtor made before filing for Chapter 11.
Okay.
That might have unfairly benefited certain creditors at the expense of others.
So, for example, if KAL Freight sold off a bunch of their trucks at below market value to a friend right before filing for bankruptcy, that could be considered an avoidable transfer.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
The court can actually claw back those assets. Host speaker. The court can actually claw back those assets to make sure that all creditors are treated fairly and that the assets are distributed equitably.
It's like a safeguard against any last-minute shenanigans.
Exactly.
To favor certain parties over others.
Bankruptcy law is really designed to promote fairness and transparency.
Right.
Making sure that all creditors have a fair shot at recovering their losses.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, there's another term that came up in our research. Cash collateral.
Right.
I have a kind of a vague idea of what that means.
Yeah.
Can you break it down for us?
Sure. So cash collateral refers to any cash or assets that the debtor has that are subject to a creditor's security interest. So for instance, if KAL Freight has money in a bank account that's pledged as collateral for a loan, that would be considered cash collateral.
And I'm guessing they can't just spend that money freely.
Not without the consent of the secured creditor or authorization from the court. This is to protect the creditor's interest in that collateral.
So the court might require KAL Freight
to provide some form of adequate protection to the creditor before they can use that cash.
Exactly. Adequate protection could involve things like periodic cash payments to the creditor or providing additional collateral. Just to ensure that their interest is protected.
It's all about finding that balance again, right?
It is.
Protecting both the debtor and the creditor during this delicate Chapter 11 dance.
Exactly. Bankruptcy law can be complex.
Yeah.
But it's really about finding a fair and orderly resolution to a company's financial distress.
All right. I think we've done a pretty good job of...
I think so.
Of unpacking the legal complexities of Chapter 11.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
But at the end of the day, it's not just about, legal terms. And financial maneuver.
It's about people, right? Yeah.
There's a human element to all of this that we can't ignore.
Absolutely.
We've already touched on the impact on employees and customers.
But there's another layer we need to consider. The communities where KAL Freight operates.
That's a great point.
It's not just about the company itself. It's about the wider economic ecosystem.
It is, yeah.
So what happens to those communities when a major employer like KAL Freight faces these kinds of challenges?
Well, it can have a real ripple effect throughout the local economy. Think about all the businesses that rely on KAL Freight. The gas stations, the truck stops, the repair shops, the restaurants. Where drivers stop for a meal, they all feel the impact. When a company like KAL Freight scales back or, in the worst case scenario, shuts down completely.
It's a reminder of how interconnected our economy really is.
It is.
The decisions made by one company can have far-reaching consequences for individuals, businesses, entire communities.
And in the case of KAL Freight,
the impact could be felt across multiple states. And even internationally.
With those Canadian connections.
Exactly.
This raises another interesting question. The role of government and regulators in these situations. Are there any measures in place to kind of mitigate the potential fallout from a major Chapter 11 filing?
That's a complex issue with a lot of different perspectives. Some people argue for a more hands-off approach. Let the market forces play out, survival of the fittest. Let the stronger companies emerge. Others believe that the government has a responsibility to step in and provide support to essential industries. Especially during tough economic times.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
It is.
Finding that right level of intervention without stifling innovation or creating unintended consequences.
Exactly.
And the trucking industry with its unique challenges and its vital role in our supply chain presents a particularly tricky case.
It does.
For policymakers.
For sure.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's safe to say that KAL Freight's Chapter 11 filing is far more than just a business story.
It is.
It's a story about people, communities, and that intricate web of connections that make up our economy.
It's a story that highlights the complexities.
It does.
Of our modern world.
Yeah.
Globalization, technological advancements, economic fluctuations. They create both opportunities and challenges.
And it's a story that's still unfolding.
It is.
We'll be watching closely to see how KAL Freight navigates this Chapter 11 process, what choices they make, and what the ultimate outcome will be for the company, its employees, its customers.
And the communities it serves.
All right. So we've spent a good amount of time now, really unpacking the intricacies of this KAL Freight Chapter 11 filing.
We have.
We've explored the legal side of things.
Yeah.
The impact on employees and communities, and the wider context of the trucking industry and its struggles.
Right. It's a multifaceted situation.
It is.
No easy answer.
Definitely not.
That's for sure. And as we kind of enter this final stretch of our deep dive, I think the big question is, will KAL Freight be able to pull through this?
Right.
What are their chances of success?
Well, predicting the future is always a tricky business.
It is.
But there are a few key factors that I think will likely influence their fate.
What are some of those things that we need to watch for?
Well, first and foremost, their ability to successfully reorganize that core trucking business. That's crucial. Can they streamline their operations, improve efficiency, and ultimately become profitable again in this tough market?
It's not just about survival at this point. It's about thriving in this really competitive landscape.
They've got to convince their creditors, their customers, even their employees, that they have a viable plan for the future.
What else is going to be crucial?
Well, the overall health of the trucking industry.
Yeah, okay.
If this great freight recession keeps dragging on, or if we see, another spike in fuel prices, that could derail even the best laid plans.
So there are some external forces that are really outside of their control?
To a certain extent, yeah.
Okay.
But they also need to be proactive, adaptable, innovative in their approach,
Like what kinds of things?
Well, they need to find ways to differentiate themselves from the competition. Maybe leverage technology to improve efficiency. Potentially explore new markets or service offerings.
So it's really about being strategic.
It is.
And seizing those opportunities even when things are tough.
Exactly.
Okay.
And let's not forget about relationships.
Oh, right.
KAL Freight's success will depend on their ability to maintain those strong relationships with their creditors, negotiate favorable terms, and really demonstrate that they're committed to fulfilling their obligations.
And building trust with their employees is going to be key too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, employees are the backbone of any company, especially in trucking, where, you need those skilled drivers. KAL Freight has to show them that. That they value them, that they're invested in their well-being, and that they have a shared vision for the future.
It's about fostering that sense of partnership, right?
It is.
Working together to weather this storm.
Exactly.
Okay, and that brings us to another important point, leadership.
Oh yeah, big one.
KAL Freight's management team. They really need to step up here.
They do.
Make those tough decisions, communicate clearly, and inspire confidence that they can lead this company through this this challenging chapter.
It's a real test of their leadership.
It is their
resilience and their commitment to the company's success.
And ultimately, the outcome of all of this is going to depend on a lot of things.
It will.
KAL Freight's own actions, external market forces, and probably a little bit of luck along the way.
Always need a little bit of luck.
Always, right. But it's a reminder that even when things are tough, even in the face of adversity, there's always hope.
There is.
Possibility for renewal, reinvention.
It's one of the fascinating things about the business world.
It is.
The constant evolution, the disruption, the the resilience.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive
yeah.
into KAL Freight's journey through Chapter 11.
It's been a journey.
We've explored the complexities of bankruptcy law, the challenges that the trucking industry is facing, and the human impact of these events.
Hopefully our listeners have gained a deeper understanding.
I hope so.
Not just of the financial and legal side of things, but also of those human stories behind the headlines.
And maybe this deep dive has piqued your curiosity to explore some of these topics even further, whether you're interested in, business law, the trucking industry, the economy in general.
It's all connected.
There's always more to learn, more to discover.
More to discuss.
Keep asking those tough questions. Keep seeking out new perspectives and keep diving deep.
That's what we're here for.
Into the topics that matter to you.
All right. That's it for this deep dive.
Until next time.
Happy exploring, everyone.
Happy exploring.
And safe travels.